Good evening, everyone. My name's Adrian Rooke, and I'm a druid in the order of bards, ovates, and druids. When I'm not druiding, I'm a therapist, and I've specialised over the years in working in the field of addiction due to my own experience. I'm hoping there's lots of people popping up and saying they've joined, and welcome to everyone. I'm hoping you can hear me, and if somebody could just say, yay, I can hear you, Aid, that would be great, because I can't hear myself here. There's no sound coming back to me. So I will trust in the gods and have faith that you can hear me, and I will continue with my talk. I'm hoping to share with you some experiences of magic and how magic's manifested itself in my life, and also some experiences that I've had where magic's actually saved my life. And I think magic manifests in multiple ways. Can anyone hear me? There's no one saying that they can actually hear me, and it would be a shame if I was waffling on and people couldn't hear me. I will continue in my vigil. So it's 8:01, so I'm going to start anyway. So welcome, everyone. Such a pleasure and a privilege to be here and to be able to talk to you. When Philip mentioned it to me, I was absolutely terrified and frightened to death. It was a strangely challenging thing, considering I have spoken a lot in public in my own private life and my personal working life, but this is different. I think it's talking to family and friends. It should be easier, but in some ways it's strangely harder. Just wanted to say, I had a conversation with Philip several years ago, and it was a conversation that we had in a sauna of all places on a camp, and there was only Philip and I there, and he was asking me about some of my experiences, my life experiences, which have been numerous, and I told him about an experience of how I sold my shop. That was a great transition, and around the time that I joined the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, and it was a time of huge transformation for me, which was wonderful, but it was also very challenging, and I don't believe that, certainly in my experience, there was a certain amount of sacrifice that life demanded from me in order to follow the Pied Piper of my soul, the song that my soul was singing to me. I'd created a life for me that wasn't really my life. It was the life that I thought other people wanted me to live. And it was slowly destroying me, and something needed to change. But during this conversation with Philip said to me quite in his very Philip-esque way, Adrian, what have you got out of being a druid? What's druidry done for you? And I looked at him and I said, well, Philip, apart from divorced, bankrupt, and covered in tattoos, I've had an absolutely fantastic time out of druidry. And it saved my soul, saved my sanity, and it gave me a path on which I've been truly blessed to be able to follow and to meet the wonderful people that I've met along the way. But the story I told Philip then was about a shop that I had, and I ended up in the fruit and vegetable trade to please my father, really, and I was a bit lost and a bit aimless, having had quite a dysfunctional childhood and lots of addiction, lots of strange bullying, and so on and so forth. And my solace in those days was to be in the woods at the back of my house, and I had a little place in a hawthorn copse where I used to crawl under and I'd be safe in there. And it was just wonderful. And I could put my ear to Mother Earth and I could hear her whispering to me, and I felt safe then. Yeah, I just love the whole C.S. Lewis, Narnia, Lord of the Rings. I just wanted a world where there were talking animals and exciting talking trees, and that wasn't what I had at the time. So you know, life was as it was. But this, you know, I was telling Philip that I'd gone to the Dabuni Grove one night. And we were having a talk, and we always had a sharing talking stick. And I said that, you know, I was troubled because I realised that I needed to get out of the fruit trade in order to open up other possibilities. I couldn't get out unless I sold the business, and it was suggested to me by Susan Jones, who used to be the tutor coordinator and one of the very magical people that I've met along the way. And she suggested that I go in the next day and have a ritual. And the obvious seems to elude us sometimes, and have a ritual and to thank the shop for all that it done for me, and to give it my blessings, and then to be able to move on. And there was a part of me that was somewhat slightly skeptical, but I thought, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And so the next day, in I went, armed with various spring waters and incenses, and I had this lovely ritual on reflection with the shop, and asked it, you know, it's time for me to go now. You know, you've supported me in the journey this far, but my destiny does not lie here; it lies elsewhere. And lo and behold, the shop had been on the market for 2 years. I hadn't had any interest. There was a major financial crash at the time. And the very next day, I went into the fruit market in Bristol, whereby I was purchasing the day's produce. And a chap came up to me and said, Aid, is your shop still for sale? I've just been made redundant, and I'd like to lease it off of you for 5 years. And I mean, I was stunned. You could have knocked me over with a feather. But once I'd kind of gained my senses again, I very quickly put everything into action. I was out within 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, I was away from the shop, and eventually that gave me the breathing space to sell it to somebody that this guy knew eventually, and it freed me up to embrace my new life and my new destiny. And so, you know, along with working through the OBOD course and the learnings that came with that, I did lots of other things. I trained, I went back to university and I trained as a therapist, particularly in the field of addiction because of my own experiences. And you know, magic manifests itself in many, many ways. And I think for me, the greatest magical act of all is to transform a life that is potentially going nowhere, or very chaotic, you know, full of addiction and pain and sadness. And that was a path I followed myself for many years, and it's bleak. It's a bleak